This is a show about possibilities. Stop running from the negatives. Start focusing on the positives. Manage the unmanageable. Let Dan help. This is the Thank You Dan Show with Alex. Now, here's Dan Gasby.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Thank You Dan
and Alex Show.
Today we have something that's very touching that we overheard by chance. A young man named Ken Keene Jr. who put together a music video.
Yes, indeed.
In honor of his dad, who is going through front temporal lobe dementia, which is there's so many different types of dementias. Alzheimer's being the predominant one. Almost 60% of all dementias are Alzheimer's related. But this young man has a father that he adores, and he has, over a course of time, watched him basically slip away.
Right.
And instead of running away, because so many people do, and that can even happen in your own family where you have siblings, some people just
Absolutely.
don't understand it. He ran towards him, and he realized how special time is with him.
And I loved particularly, Dan, that he said he's been into poetry for quite some time. But, you know, he wrote these lyrics, this poem for his father, and then one day he thought, well, maybe I can make this into a song. And not only did he make it into a song, but he made it into a rap song.
He made it into...
Which particularly, I find particularly fascinating.
Well, you know, and his background, from what I understand, we'll hear from him a little later, he loves all different types of music.
Right.
And upon hearing it, I thought it was sort of a combination of country and soul wrapped, entwined in a hip hop package. Okay. So he's breaking new ground, talking to young people about.
What do you think it sounds like?
Well, you know, it sounds good. How's that? I'm going like that because, you know, sometimes you can't just put your finger on something. It's like art.
What would you call it?
And speaking of that, we have someone coming up who's going to talk to us about art and how it relates to people with dementia. Yes. But art, music, anything that's creative, the things that break out many times can't be defined. They can only be appreciated.
I agree.
And he has done something that really, when we both heard it, we both looked at each other and said, wow, this is something that we have to have on the Thank You, Dan and Alex show to let people know any kind of message that unravels or demystifies what.
But you thought of something
is.
that I particularly liked, and you said you would call it coal, country and soul.
Country and soul, yeah.
And I like that. I thought that was actually a great way to
well, music comes together.
Categorize
foods come together. The world is coming together, even in a divisive environment as we existed today. But you know, you can't take the heart, and you can't take the soul. You can't take when good people or people of good character try to do something. They're going to pick and use whatever they can to blend and meld something in that's going to be creative, that's going to make a difference, and you don't limit yourself.
And this is what our show is about, Dan, you know, reminding our listeners our show is all about changes and challenges in caregiving and making a difference, in this life and in this world that has become so complicated and hostile in many ways. So we are here to support those who are making an effort to make this a better place.
The only thing we have to do to matter is to make things that are good,
right,
aware for others to know they're there. And that's what we're doing.
And you know what I thought about? I've been thinking about this a lot these past few weeks with everything that's going on. That's so horrifying, and I find that, you know, kindness has fallen so short. And it's really not that hard to be kind. If you just give it a little extra thought and a little extra effort, it's not so hard to be a little bit kinder.
Well, you know, I disagree. And I'll tell you why.
Tell me.
If it's in your soul, in your being, to be secure, then you'll be kind. we get caught up into PDAs and information and trying to please others, and in the process of doing that, we lose the ability to be thoughtful. And kindness comes with being able to sit back and to say, how do I make someone else feel better, not just myself or not myself? And if you get caught up into trying to please everyone, you'll never, ever get a chance, because you won't have time to be thoughtful. And so it's important.
Okay, I see your point. I can understand it.
You know, and
sure.
I think that, you know, and you have to be resilient. You have to stand for something. I've seen it many times. I mean, whether it's women's rights or gay rights or civil rights or workers' rights or children's rights, you have to stand. Sometimes you have to go against the grain, or you have to put yourself. You have to put
Swimming
yourself
upstream.
out there. Well, yeah,
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
yes.
with the bear, which is public opinion, there to try to eat you, to devour you, to destroy you, to take you out. I mean, it's happened in our relationship because it was different and novel and made people uncomfortable. But at the same time, having weathered the storm, you see how many people come now to tell you, I just didn't get it, now I do. Or the thing I'm getting lately is, I didn't know. You know, and I think the thing that we'll share with Ken Keene Jr. and his dad, Tough Kind of Man, is that you learn until you're sitting in that seat next to someone going through this journey, and it's a brutal journey.
Brutal.
You don't know.
Right.
And no matter what someone tries to tell you or do, unless they've been in that seat, they have no idea. And
absolutely.
And
not.
when it's not what you present outwardly, it's the 17th out of the 24th hour after the third day of the same thing going on, or cleaning up after someone and then having to do it immediately right after because they need to toilet themselves again, but they don't know how to, and you're tired. Or you can't go somewhere when you really want to go somewhere because you don't have the person.
They need you.
You don't have the resources or the caregiving situation set up. That's when you understand, and you know you can't get away, and you miss so many things. And I must add, when you see how people around you pull away from you, slowly, in some cases, and some just drop you altogether, who were your quote-unquote good friends. So it's one of those things that at the end of the day, you learn through adversity who your friends are, but more importantly, who you are.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I'm looking forward to talking to Ken Keene Jr. and his, I think, breakout Cole song, country soul, wrapped in hip hop.
Your Smile.
Your Smile about his dad and front temporal dementia, and to have Julie Keys and the Keys Art Gallery and talking about what to do when your friends or family suddenly are faced with their possessions and how to manage and protect them.
Correct. You're listening to the Thank You, Dan
and Alex Show.
We'll be right back.
Don't wait to make your life better. Get started with the Thank You, Dan Show with Alex.
Your smile will forever help keep me calm.
Saw it coming, who could imagine the strongest man in my life would before my eyes soon begin to vanish. But that's okay, cause I'm here to stay until the very end. So go ahead and bring on the pain, you see. How could this be? This is so wrong. His mind was so incredibly sharp and now it seems as if it's almost gone. Where'd you go, Dad?
As your memory fades and we're forced to slowly drift apart, your smile is what's helping keep me calm.
What an amazing piece of artistry we just listened to. And that was just the trailer. There's going to be a full recording, video, of a story that touched both my heart and Alex's heart. It was one of those things that once we heard it and saw it, we said, we've got to get this guy on because he's in his own way making a difference. Yeah. Welcome, Ken Keene Jr.
Welcome, Ken.
Thank you so much, Dan and Alex. That was a beautiful intro, and thank you for giving me the airtime and the time to talk about some things. I appreciate it.
It's our pleasure, and we're very happy that you can be with us today. And we're looking forward to learning a little bit more about your story. So, can you tell us how old your dad is and the pre and post history of your dad before and after the diagnosis, and how old was he when he was diagnosed?
Sure. Currently, he is 70 years old, and it was 2013, just before his 64th birthday, that he was diagnosed with frontal temporal lobe dementia. And leading up to his diagnosis, of course, there were some symptoms, but we didn't know that it was dementia. We just thought it was getting old. You're getting older, and you're experiencing short-term memory loss and things of that nature. And, fast forward after the diagnosis, things had changed rapidly, and we found ourselves in caregiving roles, my mother and I especially, and it turned our family upside down. I have two brothers, and they have their own way of dealing with it. And we all have been struggling in our own ways of trying to deal with this the best way we know how. And we're still trying to figure it out. And it's still years later. But, he was diagnosed at University of Penn here in Pennsylvania. And I can remember the day like it was yesterday. And the hardest part was probably taking his license away from him, because he drove a truck all his life working for Philadelphia Electric. And it was hard for him to give that up, because he took great pride in driving.
I can imagine. You know what's really interesting is you just told me that he's 70 years old, and Dan's wife, B. Smith, is turning 70 just in a couple of weeks. And not only that, but she was also diagnosed in 2013. So this is pretty amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, and the thing that makes it even more eerie in the sense of there are parallels running along, you're sort of, I guess, in terms of how you're dealing with your mom, is almost you're like an only child, because you're dealing with one way and your other siblings are dealing with in a completely different way. Mm-hmm. Is that an accurate assessment? I would say it's fair. It's just, again, it's how we handle adversities, and we're all going to do it differently, of course. Me being the oldest, I'm going to have a different relationship with my father as my two brothers. But, we all just do our best, and we do what we can with what we have, and that's all you can do, really,
That's true.
So, Tough Keenaman, how did that come about?
Well, that came about when he was working for Philadelphia Electric. It's a town in Pennsylvania that he would visit, and while he was driving his truck, one day he was stopped waiting for some contractors to show up, and where he was parked, he was in front of the sign that said "Tough Keenaman." So it's Tough Keenaman, Pennsylvania. So he was sitting there waiting for these contractors. And I guess he was just sitting there. He's bored. He was just thinking, you know what? I'm going to give these guys an earful when they show up finally. And he was looking at the sign that says Tough Keenaman. And he just made a joke. I guess it was an inside joke for him or whatever.
Right.
But this is when he was somewhat, he didn't have any cognitive issues or anything like that, but it was Tough Keenaman. I'm tough. My name is Ken. I'm a man. I'm Tough Keenaman. And he started like...
That's really cute, actually. I like that story.
Yeah, he started using that as a joke, and he would share it with people, and they were like, oh, okay, whatever, Tough Keenaman. Well, that was so embedded in his mind that it would carry on into the dementia, and it became a believable story. Like, he thought he was Tough Keenaman. They named the town after him, and the reason for naming that town after him was because he addressed these contractors who showed up late, and he did a good thing by addressing them and
Getting them on the right track, right?
Getting them on the right track. So that story, it's still today. I just was with him maybe 15 minutes ago, and he said, "Do you know who I am?" And I always answer, "You're Tough Ken Amon," and he loves it. He lights up like a light bulb, and it's the highlight of the day for him. If you say his name, he's in heaven.
Oh,
Well, you know what? It's so
that's
amazing
sweet.
that when you think about now, your dad has front temporal dementia, which is different from the Alzheimer's, and there's so many different types of dementias, including Lewy body and vascular dementia. I'm not a doctor, but I do know from talking to people of the different types. And even within the whole sphere of dementias, because Alzheimer's is one of them, everybody acts differently or responds differently or communicates differently. It's almost like with dementias, it's almost like your fingerprint. No two dementias are the same. There are things that people do, obviously, they're cognitively impaired, but at the same time, how they respond, like Tough Ken Amon, stuck out in your dad's mind, and he became. It was almost like he rebranded himself that, and it makes him happy. And so that's a unique thing about dementias. You don't know how it's going to take you and where it's going to take you.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think, Ken, has staying in touch and taking care of your father done for your life as much as and the importance of you being there for your father has done for him?
Well, even before his diagnosis, I was going through different stages with him because when his memory started to fail, he was reaching out to his family and me in particular. And I took that as like, wow, my dad, we're getting closer. But here I was blinded by the dementia. I didn't know that's what was causing all this. But I took it. I'll take that anyway. I don't care because I get a chance to unite with my father. But that would progress. And I really learned about my dad and the importance of our relationship. It helped me cope. As he would descend deeper into the dementia, I was learning to cope with this and how to deal with it. And each stage was preparing me for the next stage and the next event that would occur. I mean, of course, each instance of him forgetting something or not knowing this person, or like this past couple of months, he forgot who I was, it was a blow. But I was able to handle it because I went through enough of this with him in the different stages to then handle the next occurrence, event that was going to happen.
You become tempered by it, and you ultimately get to a point where you realize that you can't control it. You've got to just roll with it,
Yeah. How long did you notice his symptoms before he was diagnosed?
Okay, we started noticing some things at the age of 60.
Yeah.
60, but he was having a hard time remembering street names, people's names, just certain events that had happened, people from years ago, which you would think you would remember.
Numbers as well?
Yes. Yeah.
I went through this with my dad as well, so I know what you're talking about.
And, well, then it just got progressively worse. And when I remember this, we had a retirement party for him. He just made it to retirement. We were scared. We didn't think he was going to make it to retirement because of how rapidly he was changing, and he was struggling to read the map and do some of the tasks at work. So, but anyway, there was a retirement party, and we all had to wear name tags because he couldn't remember who the people were. He knew their faces, he just didn't know the names. And it was a little scary, but at that time we were trying to get this thing figured out. So we were going to different neurologists and stuff like that. But yeah, it was around 60 years of age. It was really making itself known. And like I said, it wasn't until 63 he was then diagnosed, just before 64th birthday.
So, Ken, how has your mother weathered this storm?
Good question, Dan. There was a time where my mother was building up quite a bit of resentment, and it was putting her into a depression to the point where she would want to lock herself away in her bedroom to avoid my father because he was very overwhelming. He was he would depend on her for everything, and it was very repetitive, and it was beating her down. And I got to see this firsthand. Unlike what people may assume or think on the outside, they don't really know what's going on indoors. But and that's part of the reason why I wanted to stay close to the situation, because I saw what it was doing to my mother. She needed me to kind of deflect him from being so overwhelming and so present in her world. So we would feed off one another to help one another to deal with my father. It was a very tough situation for her. And,
I can only imagine. I mean, I know it. I've lived it.
Yes.
And it's the only time in life where you have to lie to someone to make it through the day. You have to constantly deflect. You have to constantly change the subject. You have to constantly tell them things that will make them smile, even though there's no basis of reality for them, you know?
Yeah, that's very understandable.
Yeah, Dan, I'll tell you what, we would talk as it would get worse and worse. We would start talking about, well, what if he was in a facility where they could help take care of him? Well, I said to my mom, I said, well, listen, if it comes to that, you got to think like this. In order to sustain any type of relationship with your husband, me with my father, that just might have to be the case, because it's about the relationship. Because what's happening here is you're going into this depression, you're building up resentment, you're having this anger, and you're not seeing your husband for what he truly is, but for how he's acting instead. And that's overpowering things, and it's overwhelming you. And, but we would really comfort one another and coach one another through the process.
Well, I hope your mom listens to the show, because I want to say this directly to her. She's not alone. The feelings she had were real and accurate, and were not wrong. If you don't go through a sense of resentment, or why am I in this, or how did this happen to me, or I can't stand this anymore, I just want to run away. If you don't go through all of those situations, then you're basically not human, because you're dealing with a situation that's horrible, that's miserable, and that is a no-win situation.
Yeah, those feelings are very real, and they need to come out, and they need to be expressed. And even though, people on the outside, and we deal with this, Dan and I deal with this all the time, people don't understand really, like you just said, what's going on the inside of a family. And, most people think of dementia and Alzheimer's still as memory loss, and they don't understand the complexity of the situation for the patient as well as the caregivers, which is huge.
Well, let's talk about something that made us smile. When we opened this show, we did the trailer, the snippet of your new music video that pays homage to your dad. How did that come about?
It's called Your Smile, right?
Yeah, it's called Your Smile, because that's it's a signature smile he has, and he's still smiling today.
That's nice.
So that's what shines the brightest in my world, is seeing his smile, and that's what I thought it just made perfect sense to name it Your Smile. But for years, I've always been into poetry. I got pretty good at it with my girlfriends, because I would just melt their hearts with my poems.
But you were a poet and you knew it, right?
So
or know
sweet.
it.
Yeah, that's it.
So did Dan, by the way.
But anyway, you mature, and I always have been pretty good with words, I guess, and writing. And I didn't put the song together until a year after I wrote that poem, or these lyrics, verses, whatever. And it just dawned on me, like, you know what? I want to do more, because I want to represent my father. I want to put my father out there and show the world just how important he is to me, my family, who he was. And then I also want to try to convey a message that's going to help others, to make them feel good, to let them know that they're not alone, and just tell our story and try to put a positive spin on this, rather than just having it be negative. Him living in a senior center or resident retirement home, and just forget about him. I didn't want to do that, man. That's my dad, and I find my relationship with him is more important than anything else in this world, and the world needs to know about it. I don't care dementia or not. So, but the music thing, it came about early this year. I decided when I had the nerve to get up and go to the studio and get on the microphone and spit the lyrics and.
You laid down some tracks, man.
I'm just curious, what made you think of rap in this context?
Well,
in context with the lyrics, that's really what intrigued me quite a bit about this whole song. So I'm really curious how that came about.
Well, I was inspired by some of the country artists and some of the songs they put out that talks about them. And I thought, you know what? I'm not a country singer. I grew up in Philadelphia. I grew up with breakdance and hip hop and also classic rock and roll music and things like that. But it just felt right, I mean, I have the poetry, the poems and stuff like that, and let me put this together and see what I can come up with. Well, after building up the confidence to take that step to go into the studio, I felt real good because I spoke with an established music composer, and Jeff Mulligan, by the way, his name is. He said, Ken, this is really good, man. You're going to have no problems. He goes, I'm looking forward to working with you. This is good stuff. So then I was like, all right, great, let's do it. And from there on, now I'm starting to feel like a rapper.
Well, you know what? I think
you did a great job.
I think your sound, I'm going to call it coal. It's country and soul, okay? That's in a hip hop of a rapper, okay?
I like that,
okay.
Dan. Cole.
Yeah, it's got a little country and it's got a little soul in a hip hop rapper. So you and I believe, the only way to make a difference is to talk to the masses and to get the message across in a way that people who are younger may not understand what you're dealing with, but through music will come to understand what it is. And I think you did. I mean, when Alex and I heard it, we both looked at each other and we said, this guy is on to something and he's got a message and he's using the medium that's going to get people who are younger than us and even younger than you to at least hear it and hear the message and embed some of those important things you say about fatherhood and relationships in their minds. And that's the start of great things. Yeah,
and we both have children, who listen to this type of music. And I have for many, many years as well and love it. So it hit my soul.
So what's next?
Well, right now, with this preview trailer, I'm trying to promote as much as I possibly can just before the actual release of the full music video. And so you actually are the first of, I hope to be many, interviews that I do talking about dementia and the music and things like that. But the full video is going to be about 6.5 minutes long. It's kind of like the Thriller, Michael Jackson, where they have a plot, there's a story, and then you have your music. So that's basically what it's going to be. It's going to be a blend.
Very cool. Good luck with that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So when it debuts, please come back on and let us know how things are going. I mean, we want to do everything we can to get your message out because it's a message, quite honestly, that more and more people are going to be dealing with.
Absolutely. It's just another genre of music that if we can tap into this and try to use it as a tool to convey the message, I mean, that's what it's all about. And there's different audiences, different groups of people that can maybe relate to this. So, but, I'm going to do my best to keep pushing and raising awareness because it's all about my father and the people around the world. And it's a problem that's just getting worse, and we need to talk about it and address it and do the best we can to fix it if we can, and that's my agenda.
Absolutely.
Thank you for all your efforts.
And Ken, do me a favor. Go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you for all your efforts, Ken, in trying to make a difference. We really are here to support you and everybody that's going through this journey. Please tell us quickly, Ken, how can people get in touch with you?
The people can get in touch with us by visiting our YouTube channel. It's The Journey with Tough Kenaman. We have 160 plus videos on there, and you'll find the music, the song, Your Smile. It's the latest upload, so you'll see that it's the first one on the page. Can't miss it. We also have a Facebook page, The Journey with Tough Kenaman. So we do have a little bit of a social media presence.
Well, you're going to have a bigger one soon.
Yes.
And what I wanted to say earlier, because I got emotional about it, because I know what you're dealing with, but more importantly, and not to diminish you, I know what when you live with someone for X number of years and you watch them, watch the light turn out slowly. Please tell your mother that I admire her strength, and to always, no matter how much she's going through, and no matter how frustrated she gets, to forgive herself at the end of the day.
Absolutely, and that's great advice. She'll be hearing this, and we've come a long way. I'm going through my own little thing right now, Dan. My dad just forgot my name maybe like a month ago, so it's crazy how this is all unraveling. But at the same time,
part of the journey, Ken. It is.
Yeah, we're growing too as people.
Yep.
But
you're making a difference. You're making a difference, and you put yourself out there. And most people, I always say, I talk about the 3 C's. Everybody can complain. Some people have the right to critique, but you created something that's going to be long after this situation runs its course. You will have helped so many people. Thank you again, Ken, and tell Tough Kinnaman we love him, okay?
Dan and Alex, thank you so much. Love you guys, and I will definitely pass on the message.
Best of luck to you and your family. Thank you,
Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
A good life starts at the top. A good life starts with the Thank You Dan Show with Alex.
Welcome back to the Thank You Dan
and Alex Show.
Very emotional show today.
Yes,
one of
indeed.
the things that always touch me is when you see people who go out on a limb and try to find new ways to express what so many people are going through, and at the same time trying to heal themselves because of the pain that they have to endure that no one sees outwardly when they are not in front of friends or family. And what Ken Keene Jr. did with his song, to his dad who's suffering from front temporal dementia, when we heard it, we looked at each other and just said, we got to have this guy on the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when we talked to him and we realized in so many parallels, his story reminds me of my story with my
so
wife.
Many, yeah, I agree with you.
And we didn't even go into all of the depth, but by literally time constraints, and some of the story parallel what you were dealing with your dad. You realize that radio is a wonderful medium because you get to talk about it and you get to express yourself.
What I love especially about Ken's song also is that he found a way to celebrate his father and to share it with the world. And I think that's a really wonderful thing. And, it's a great story. And his devotion to his father is very special, as your devotion to B is.
Well, in life, so many things. I mean, he's the first responder.
Correct.
In his family. I mean, you have people that some people step up, and some people, by virtue of everyone else stepping back, you're left with the awesome responsibility of getting how could I put it? Getting the criticism for just making sure that it doesn't stop, or someone takes on, it doesn't fall apart, or it doesn't take, it doesn't take away.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's something that we need to understand. It takes a lot of effort to care for someone